Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome back to the moon video. We're here to chat about the energies of the upcoming full moon in Leo that is happening on February 12th, 2025. And there's some energy coming in with this one, especially very courageous energy. And when I sat to meditate on the energies of this moon and got some intuitive guidance, the theme that I was received was raise our courageous voices. And I really got this sense that this full moon is wanting to help us use our voices for the power they truly hold and to release any sense we have of not having control of our voice or having our voice be taken from us as well. Like this full moon really wants to remind us of the power we have in our voice, the power we have not only in our own lives to use our voice in our own lives, but the power we have within our voice to advocate for each other, to support each other as well. And if anyone is paying attention to life, I mean, just anything, especially if you're in the United States, you can understand why we might feel this need to be using our voices more right now as well. And we'll get more into that. But let's just chat a little bit about the energy of Leo herself. So,
Yes.
Leo is the fixed fire sign. She's represented by the lion. And she also is associated with the heart chakra when we think about the zodiac signs and like where how they align to different parts of the body as well. Leo is known as the heart. And when we think about Leo energy, we think about bold and courageous expression, very heart-centered expression. But when I think about Leo, I typically think kind of the person who likes to be in the spotlight. Like when I think of Leo
Hmm.
energy, I think of someone who is very comfortable being on stage, very comfortable with the light on them and a microphone in hand, but who also wants to be on that stage with as much authenticity as possible. So it might not necessarily be someone who's completely acting and taking on all of these other roles. It's someone who's going to be on stage and is going to be most intensely themselves. That's
Yes,
often what I think
exactly.
about. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
with this energy of Leo coming in, there's already a suggestion for us to be with our hearts, to spend some time feeling into this area, to spend some time feeling into what wants to be expressed from the heart center as well. And when I felt it intuitively to the energies of this full moon, I really did feel a big activation between the heart center and the throat in particular. And then it also pinged with the third eye. So I kind of had this like heart, throat, third eye ping that happened. I was taken to the throat first, and I felt a lot of energy on the right side, which to me is always kind of like that action taking, the more yang energy. And I also saw the word advocate, like really
Mm.
big. So for me, what I interpret that to mean was like, hey, we're going to feel a compulsion or more of a desire to raise our voice in advocation for ourselves and others around this full moon. Then I was taken to the heart chakra, and it was really this sense of like, what's really happening in here? What's really happening in here? And I know when we talk about Leo and, the heart, like Leo is very much about self-expression. The heart is really about collective energies in so many ways, though. But there's something about the way Leo is able to kind of get into that collective energy and recognize, and it's very Aquarius, actually. It's very Aquarian as well.
I was gonna speak to that. Yes.
Yeah, which is that like when each of us is most authentic in our light, that actually benefits the whole collective. That is something that Leo and Aquarius have very much in common. I see, is
Yes.
that like
Oh yeah.
authenticity benefits us all type
Yes.
energy. Um,
Exactly. I would feel like that's kind of what that axis is
yes.
about because,
Yeah.
they're opposites, but like they say two sides of the same
Yeah.
coin. So there's that similarity there.
Yeah.
Leo, I feel like, is really more about the individual and
Yeah.
being who you are no matter what. And Aquarius kind of puts it in place of the collective. So I have a lot of Aquarius placements, and
Hmm.
sometimes I just like to be different for the sake of being different. Like I
Hmm.
will see what everybody, like I was that kid in the classroom who everyone was saying this, and I would sit back and I would listen and I would just say the opposite just to cause shit.
Love it.
Um, like I just like being that. But that again is kind of adapting who I am to the collective, whereas Leo is just like, this is who I am despite if there's anybody here,
Yeah.
despite who's here.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, and both are important because if you're living alone on an island, that that changes things. But so bringing it all together is how you can really understand your part here in society authentically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I think about those two energies as well, Leo is all about like, I just got to express me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
But Aquarius primes the playing field so that we are living in a place where we're even allowed to express ourselves. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
So
exactly. And how
Leo
do they all
is
come together and
right. Like,
work with each other
yeah.
in on a team, right? Leo is very, I mean, it's not that Leo's not a team player or anything like that, but I feel like Aquarius is what brings that other side of, okay, let's make this version of ourselves work together with others.
Yeah. Oh my
Because you do
gosh.
have to be
Mm.
adaptable, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you're too much of yourself and not paying attention to how, reading the room and stuff like that, it just doesn't jive well. So that's how the two can really come together.
Yeah. I know one of the houses really speaks to that as well. Like that kind of
Which one?
dichotomy. I was working on the horoscopes for
Oh, yeah.
for the full moon, so I was obviously looking at the different
Yeah.
houses that it's touching and everything. And yeah, there's one
Nice.
house in particular that I know is like that interplay between like the individual and the collective as well. But yeah, for sure,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Aquarius, Leo, uh, what's the word? I always forget the word for it when it's the two
Axis.
axis. Thank you, the
Yeah.
axis. And when we have this Leo full moon, we have a ton of Aquarian energy. We have the sun in Aquarius and
Yes.
a lot of planets still in Aquarius as well. Actually, do you have them in
Hmm.
front of you, Sarah?
Yes. So at the time of the full moon, obviously Pluto hanging out there for 20 years. And then Mercury will be a couple degrees away from the sun at this point.
Ooh.
So it's also activating
Yeah.
this, new moon as well. So it's
The full
standing,
moon?
yeah. So it's opposite the full moon because
Right.
if it's next to the sun, it's therefore, but it's 2 degrees off.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense to what you're speaking about, not only expressing ourselves, but like communicating this
Hmm.
more clearly as well. Because Mercury is all about our mind, our communication, how we process things,
Yeah.
how we share ideas with each other. Um,
Yeah. And my
but it's standing
Mercury's
in
in
opposite.
Leo. So that's
Is it?
yes.
That makes sense. I love that. I feel
It'll
like
be
that's
an
why you can
interesting.
like express what you're passionate about so easily. That makes so much sense to
Yeah,
me.
it's gotten me in trouble a few times.
That's all right. Hey, there's good, there's bad, the ugly in astrology, right?
Well, and that is so true. Like, we're talking a lot about Leo energy and its light expression, which is it's so courageous, it's so authentic, it's so expressive, it's so artistic, it's so like vibrant, like really so, so vibrant. But on the shadow side, Leo energy can also be a little bit egotistical, a little
Yes.
bit,
Pompous,
yeah, arrogant, a
a
little
little
bit.
dominant sometimes.
Yeah, and it has I call this energy the steamroller when it's
Mm,
like your idea comes in and it's just going to steamroll over anybody else's.
totally.
Yeah. There
Totally.
can
Which
be
is
that
needed sometimes. It's like
sometimes.
it's always good, it's not always bad. It's just again the
Yeah.
situation that it comes in and
And
balancing out with other parts.
Leo energy is very naturally a leader. Like it's a very
Yes.
natural, organic leadership energy. But it's also
Yes.
important for us to note, especially in the day and age we're in right now, that true leadership isn't about just telling other people what to do.
Right.
True leadership is actually listening to where people are asking to be led.
Yeah. Ooh, dang, that was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Write that down.
Quickly before it's gone.
Yeah.
And
Yes, which is true.
and
Yes.
I believe and I feel that so much of how we're being compelled, encouraged, urged to use the true power of our voice with this Leo full moon is to speak to that true energy of leadership in opposition to how current leadership is happening, especially here in the
Mm.
United States of America.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. And, with this full moon, this Leo full moon, asking us to courageously use our voices, especially now while we still can, while it's still completely legal for us to come on here and say what we want to say, and hopefully will remain so for a very long period of time. I'm just going to state very clearly, I am not a fan of Donald Trump and his policies.
Yep.
And I
Either.
believe in equal rights for all people, regardless
Yes.
of sexual orientation, gender expression, immigration status, country they were born in, religion, any of those things. And it breaks my heart every single day that we are where we are. So I'm just going
Hmm.
to state that very clearly, and I will do everything in my power to continue to maintain the vision I hold for a future for my children and for the generations to come. That is a future that keeps in mind the health and vitality of all the people and the planet over the profits for a few. And I'm going to
Yes.
hold that vision.
Yes. That's the best that we can do right now. There's obviously lots of little specific things, but overall, if we stay and act out of a place of fear, then that's how they can continue to have power over us. And yes, it makes sense to be scared of things that are frightening, but if we're acting out of that all the time and staying in that space all the time, it's it's really an act of standing out to still somehow find joy and find community in these times that are so harrowing.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I think, that's the least we can do is continue in these dark times to still somehow figure out how to show up authentically,
Yeah. I do think a
coming
big
back to the
part
full moon.
Yeah. And I do think a big part of why we are where we are is for us to remember the personal power we
Mm,
hold. Yes, on the
mhm.
individual basis, but also as a collective, as the people. Like, we have to remember, especially here in the United States, it's supposed to be a government of the people, for the people, by the people. And I really feel like we've moved away from that in the last few decades. And while it, while I've never been someone who has been a big fan of burn it to the ground to rebuild it, because I just think a lot more people get hurt that way. Um,
Be prepared for that.
I'm definitely here for the rebuilding.
Right, right, right,
I love planting seeds and love helping things grow.
right,
And I know that's what we're doing here with the Intuitive Moon community as well,
right.
is creating a place for people to come and connect where we do feel like we can express ourselves authentically
Yeah.
and with an invitation to ask questions and continue to learn and continue to grow and make mistakes and just try to do better. But anyway, let's bring it back to this Leo full moon because we're just like all over the place.
That's what it's about, though.
I
Hey,
know, I know.
that's what this energy now and in this full moon is about. Um, so do you want me to talk a little bit about the
Yeah, talk about
astrology
some
of
of the
this?
astrology. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
So I mentioned, it's happening very closely to Mercury, um, which just brings our minds, our communication into the mix of this. But the transit that I want to talk mostly about is that this moon is directly squaring Uranus. Now, Uranus rules our nervous system. Uranus rules liberation. Uranus rules progress. It also rules sudden changes, unexpected changes, and disruption. Things that kind of come in and change the status quo. Um, and that's very necessary at times, right? Because if we're stuck in the same situation, it doesn't get us to switch our point of view and have us thinking in different ways to figure out new solutions.
Right.
Now, when we have a more supportive transit or aspect with Uranus, like a trine or a sextile, it's a bit more fun and exciting. And ooh, I have a sudden urge to go downtown today, and you might meet someone new. A square not so much. It's generally more of a frustrating or really annoying thing that came up that has you like just being like, why is this happening? I didn't expect this at all. And you have to kind of derail your entire day or your whatever your plan was, and just kind of think about it in an entire new framework. However, I think, here I am, someone who has Pluto in the first house, I'm all about hard changes. You know,
Mm,
it might be tough, but it does offer an opportunity to really dig deep as to what's going on.
mm,
Now, tying the square into the full moon, to me, what this feels like is that it's going to be a clash between our ego, our self-worth, our, worthiness of standing in the spotlight,
yeah.
and our freedom, like our way of feeling free to express ourselves authentically. Now, maybe you or others put limitations on expressing yourself freely because of the way you were raised, or because you have a fear of certain people judging you in a certain way, or you're afraid of this, that, whatever the repercussions externally might be. Those things may be illuminated in this full moon, which is going to feel kind of icky. You know, full
Hmm.
moon is full emotions. It's going to make you feel down. It could make you feel down. It could make you feel worthless for a hot moment, but you're here now hearing this. So it can give you a little bit of foresight that allows you to lean into those emotions rather than push them away and forget about, if you're going to post something on your first YouTube video or something like that, that you've been thinking about posting for months, but you're so afraid to for whatever reason. It may have you feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I'm never going to post it. But if you can just be like, okay, breathe for a minute. What am I really feeling scared about? And just get really present with them, write them down. And even if it feels gross, like, this is what I'm scared about. I'm afraid of this, this, and that. And if you can really write them out, sometimes just getting them out on paper allows your mind, because the mind, Mercury is activated, it can really allow your mind to calm down a little bit, because you wrote out a few scenarios of like, what's the worst thing that could happen, what could actually happen, and then your brain can be like, okay. And once it's out on paper, it gives you a little bit more space to
Yeah,
have some other thoughts come in.
totally.
So that's my advice for this. It may feel triggering, it may feel dysregulating, especially with our self-worth, which is something I'm sure a lot of us struggle with. But the goal here is to get present with it,
Yeah.
and not run away from it, so that we can actually move past it, so that you can post your YouTube video, because that's what's important. Or whatever it may be. We need to be putting our voice out there. And so we
Yeah.
need to be working through the
Yeah.
things that stop us from doing that.
Well, and
And lastly, oh, go
yeah.
ahead, please.
Well, I just wanted to share, like, that's the illumination part of the full moon. We have to remember full moons are about illumination and a release. Now, the illumination is typically those big emotions that come up that we're like, oh man, I don't want to feel this. You know what I mean? Like, that's typically the
Yes.
illumination part of a full moon, and why we're often like, the full moons make me crazy, right? Like, it's like they bring
Right.
up these emotions that we've kind of been like hiding away. But just like you said, Sarah, if we don't push that away, if we actually allow ourselves to be with the emotion, to get curious with it, to invite it over for a meal even, right? Then
Ooh,
we
I
can
like that.
actually, yeah, then we can actually move past it, move through it, as opposed to just
Mhm.
pretend like it's not there and it keeps coming back again and again. And the other thing I want to say, because I think this is really important, and it's one of those things that is kind of obvious when you state it, but then you actually have to hear it often to be like, oh, yeah, that's right. And that is courage does not mean we do things unafraid. Courage means we're
Mm.
afraid and we do it anyway.
Anyways,
Courage and bravery is that we don't let the fear win. We do it with the fear anyway. If we didn't have the fear, we would not be brave. We would just be doing the things, right?
very true. I
It
like that
is
part too.
it is the doing it in spite of the fear that creates the energy of moving over it. Or I don't want to say moving over it, but like moving through it, not letting
Yeah.
it own you, right? That's what courage really is. And I don't want to make this too much about politics, but I also recognize that politics impacts our daily lives and it impacts our freedoms and what we have
Yes.
access to. And it also impacts the way we treat each other. And
Yes.
as a moral, ethical, kind person who, for the most part, likes treating people with respect and kindness and likes to be treated the same way in return, it's very demoralizing to see the worst of human behaviors be lauded in a way of global leadership. Um,
Mhm.
it's very
Mhm.
demoralizing to see that. But also, it's really important for us to be the mirror of the love, the kindness, the authenticity, the other aspects of human nature that are also
Mhm.
very natural, very organic, very divine, that is still here.
Yeah.
And with the situation we have here in the United States, with so much moving at paces that are ridiculously crazy and very illegal, but not knowing what's coming, it's very important for those of us who live here to utilize our freedoms as much as we possibly can to raise our voices for what we believe.
Yeah.
And so for some of us, that might look like advocacy on social media. It might look like showing up to protests. For some of us, it might look like just having harder conversations with people where before we would have bitten our tongue. It might mean
Yes.
calling up our representatives and our senators and stating very clearly that we are not okay with, what we see happening, or with the
Mhm.
scapegoating of certain types of people, or illegal actions on the part of our government officials. Like, like there's lots of different ways to raise our voices and to feel in alignment with our values. And this full moon
Yes.
really does call upon us for that. And so if you do feel afraid, just recognize that's just the first step. Like you're good job, you're there.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Like
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
that fear is exactly the first step of you being in the alignment of being called up, right? Like, oh, there's the fear, there's the invitation. What's one way I can bring courage to this fear right now?
Right. Right. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
There's really just only the right way for you right now in this moment. And maybe that looks like something else next week, but
Yeah.
it's recognizing where you're at right now and what you can do with the power you have now
Yeah.
and figuring out what that is and not being afraid of like, oh, but I might show up in the wrong way or do this. Like, that's okay. We're
Yeah.
here to figure it all out together, not perfectly. Um, so yeah, I feel like this full moon is really about moving past getting out of the fear, getting out of
Yeah.
the external what ifs.
Yeah.
Um, and I do want to add that just really quickly, there's a lot of support in
Mm.
this chart too from Mars and Saturn. These two are connecting in harmony, not exact during the full moon, but very close by. And Mars is still retrograde while they're doing this, but which suggests a sense of reflecting on our actions, reflecting on our desires, reassessing our motivations. But that trine to Saturn suggests that there is support in creating stability and longevity with not only our actions, but with these things that we're pushing through to figure out with the full moon in terms of our voice and our
Yeah.
authenticity. So I think you mentioned before the call, this is foundational work
Yeah.
that we're doing here. And this transit with Saturn and Mars really suggests that as well. This is for the long run.
Yeah, I agree. What I was telling Sarah before we went live, before we hit record, I was telling her what I was feeling and intuitively. I had mentioned that I had like the throat, the heart, the third eye ping, but then I also got this sense that like luck is on our side with this lunation,
Mhm.
that there's a lot of support for us to be doing this work of raising our voices, of being courageous in our expression, and that what we're doing as we're doing this, it's not so much about getting the outcome we want right away. It's more about establishing the foundation that by using our voice in this way with this level of authenticity and alignment with our values and our heart is we're creating the foundation that's like just what you said before, that's going to move us forward into the future. That's going to be the soil we can root into moving forward as well. So it's so much about really staying aligned with our own values and speaking that outward with the power of our voice, but the power that actually comes from our spoken word, which is extremely powerful. The use of our voice. In fact, so
Yeah.
powerful that we don't realize how often we speak against ourselves every single day.
Yes,
Um,
right? Until
so
you get present with it,
right. So
it's
this
oof.
another great way to work with the energies of this full moon is to become very aware of your vocabulary, of the way that you're speaking
Mhm.
to and about yourself, and to get really intentional with speaking outwards, really utilizing your voice to speak out that which what you want to be true.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Lots going
A
on.
lot going
Lots.
on, guys, but please note, even though things feel extremely difficult, I mean, depending where you're living, depending how you identify, depending a lot of different things might relate to different levels of stress you might be feeling. But I know if you're someone who cares about human rights here in the United States, these last few weeks have not been feeling great. These last few months, years have not been feeling
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Um,
We laugh
and
so we don't cry.
oh my gosh, so much of that. So much of
Yeah.
that. And also so
Yeah.
they don't steal our joy because
Exactly.
that belongs to us and it is extremely powerful, just like our courage, right? Um, anyway, just to state that there's always support for us. There's always energies at play that are working to help us remember our autonomy, remember our divinity, remember our sovereignty. And this
Mm.
Leo full moon is just one example of these energies of nature that want to come in and support us and help us to remember the forces of nature that we truly are as well. So,
Yes.
for
Beautiful.
more information, check out the Moon blog. We'll link it below. And if you're looking for some more support, if you are wanting to find your community, to find a place to come and learn and grow and share and alchemize emotions together, please, please come check out the Intuitive Moon community. You'll find it linked below. And we also get a 21-day free trial. If you're going to come
Mm.
check it out, 21 days free. We have our next live moon circle on February 11th for the Leo full moon, just one day ahead. But we have moon circles for every new moon and full moon as well, including lots of other things as well. So, anyway, I'm saying as well a lot. I think it's time to end the video now.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, as well, I just want to say, I went to the last live moon circle and it really was something magical. Like, I knew it was going to be great, but you can never anticipate what it's going to be until everyone's actually in the Zoom room. And it was just a vibe. It was just
It
to see
was.
everyone there. Everyone's hearts were wide open, really supportive of another, really present with one another. And it's completely changed my entire day. And I was beaming for the rest of the day. So if you just want something like that twice a month, where you can come, be in community with like seriously beautiful souled people.
Yeah.
Do a little meditation, and then Raquel does intuitive reads for people so you can connect to an ancestor, connect to your guides. It's something that is just awesome and a nice little thing that really brightens your whole day. So that in alone is worth it just for those live circles. And then you get all of the other information that you have going on in there about the full moons, little horoscopes.
Hmm.
There's expansive opportunities. Like it's a good bang for your buck. So,
Yeah.
anyways, just have to light you up there because you've done a
Thank you.
wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. And we're really excited when we're in this kind of very beginning phases because for those who kind of come in as our foundational like members who are coming in now, you really get to help us create this community. We really get to co-create it to be the space we want it to be. So we're just really happy to have you, and we're really eager to learn from you and your magic as well. So anyway, if you're looking for a place to come and express and share even more, check out the Intuitive Moon community. This Leo full moon will encourage you along the way. And for more, check out the Moon blog below, and we'll see you in a few weeks for our next lunation video. Thank you guys so much for
All right.
watching. Follow, like, subscribe, do all the things. And don't forget the power of your voice, the power of your expression. Thank you so much. Bye, friends.